Great, great. Just so we've got a record and other people can see what we're up to if they care to. So this is our third installment of the Journal Club, and I'm gonna welcome those folks that haven't joined us before. Um, and the hope for me was to, meet the larger community and also kind of prepare my students for, um, the challenge of addressing the concerns that you all are finding, with the glove. Um, and then also, as a continuing service project to really try to tie the gloves into better sensors so that gloves could be informed by not some general prescription, but could be informed by the person wearing them about kind of the best settings to use. So those are the directions that we're going. Those things should kind of take shape, on the Journal Club page that most of you must have found because you hit the Zoom link. So in our first session, it was just a very, hopefully, breezy overview, breezy in the sense of, not much science or jargon about the causes of Parkinson's. And then our second meeting, we took just a fairly limited look at Tass's main paper on how the glove works as far as reducing people's Parkinson's scores on the standard scale, and also how it works by kind of attenuating bad rhythms in motor cortex. And we talked about those bad rhythms being attenuated by basically diminishing synaptic weights between neurons, right? So when too many cells are firing spontaneously in in rhythm, that kind of shuts down your ability to use those cells yourself. And so that was kind of the one take home message. And we saw, it's a pretty small clinical trial. Six people in one, six in one, two in the other, but there's kind of an overlap with one trial. And then there was also results from a computational experiment, which we didn't really look at very carefully. Um, and um, I'm getting a little bit of feedback, Margaret, from yours. So I might mute you, um, but please don't hesitate to unmute. Um, do you know how to unmute yourself? Let me.
Who are you asking, Margaret?
I was asking Margaret. Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
now am I unmuted?
you are unmuted. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good.
And the same with Jim. Jim, I was getting some feedback, I think, from your phone as well. But but I understand, right? We're all coming from different places, and I definitely want as much interaction as possible in these sessions.
I'm wearing
So
my Buzzy gloves too.
good, good, beautiful. So I thought I might start today just by giving you, kind of the genesis of the glove that we're currently making in Espanola, the fact that it's largely been student and teacher driven. Because I think if you know a little bit more about how the glove is made, we can be better critics, right, of what can be done to make it better. Because that's really what I'm looking for. And and yeah, so that's largely on the technology side. But then there's also how do you make things better? Well, it's really good to learn from people that have been wearing them for some time, not just our glove, but there's quite a few other DIY gloves out there that Ken's been experimenting with, and Kanwar has been wearing the Task glove for quite a while. So Kanwar has also agreed to kind of pick up the slack after I give kind of the tech talk about how the glove is really put together and how it's programmed. Then I think most of us really want to understand, you know, how is it effective, right? And also, there's so many questions about one-handed versus two-handed, how many hours per day, how many days per week, what does it do to your medication regimen and the like. And so, Conwar, we're still on track to tag team. Am I right, man?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, sir. Um, Good. Then let's get to it. And so let me share my screen. And again, if my screen is getting in the way and you want to come back and see the gallery, please, just speak up. We're a little bit too big, and I'm a little bit too single-minded to manage the chat very well. So please just interrupt if something isn't clear, or if you want to review something, or if you want to speed up. This is for y'all, right? So I want to hear from you.
Thank you.
So let me share my screen and get back to yeah. So just the quick bit um, on the schedule for the Journal Club, right? So we're in session 3, just on the Espanola glove, and with the discussion from Kanwar about his experience with the glove, um, and then, like I said, where I hope to take us, where the things I want to understand better is, especially since everyone's response to the glove is quite different. There can't just be one glove out there. We need to tie it to sensors. We all have, if you've got a cell phone, you have sensors in your pocket. And we should be able to use that data to better tune your phone. And by that, this is something we can do at home without, going into the clinic every 3 months, yada, yada, yada. And for folks in northern New Mexico, I know it's quite a hike, to get care. So I'm interested in the sensors that are involved in freezing of gait. And I'm also interested in the sensors that actually are reading muscle signals. So and I guess on the scientific level, I'm interested, in what is the signature of Parkinson's? And again, I shouldn't say the signature, right? What is your signature, Ken or Kanwar or Jim? And even your signature is changing over time because it's a neurodegenerative disease. So can we build technologies that track your signature and then use that signature to better design the stimulus pattern into the fingertips? So that's a preview of what I hope to talk about in sessions 4 and 5 over the next few weeks. Today, I wanted to just to step you through briefly this one document, and again, it's not as dense as Tass's paper, but it does have too much information. But I want to kind of give you I want to give you tools for better understanding the technology that's behind the treatment. Okay.
But I'm just
Um,
at this
It's
stuff.
okay.
And so a lot of us have understood, the death of cells in substantia nigra, how those lead to dangerous rhythms in the somatosensory cortex. This is a picture we looked at last time. So Tass's glove is able to squelch bad rhythms in this part of the brain, and that seems to correlate with lower Parkinson scores. Okay. Um, so in fact, here is just a replay of Tass's main kind of colored picture of what's going on activity-wise in motor cortex. And so the first thing I really did with my students, and that you can do from home with kind of off-the-shelf parts from Amazon, is to build a computer that buzzes 4 different motors at the toss pattern, right? And so this is finger 1, finger 2, finger 3, and finger 4. And again, if things are too small, also please don't hesitate to ask me to zoom in. So in some sense, this is basically all the hardware of the glove. So there is a microcontroller, and these days, Arduino microcontrollers are things that I teach to the high school engineering students. This is not a gifted and talented club, but this is the run-of-the-mill math, engineering, science achievement kind of elective at the high school I work at in northern New Mexico. And so these are kind of off the shelf. They become quite cheap when you buy them in kits. These motors are $1 a piece, and these transistors are about 10 cents a piece. The transistors are kind of switches, if you like. The computer says when to switch on the transistor, and the transistor then lets current flow into the motor. And through a lot of time and trial and error, Tass found this pattern, which I showed you last time. Here we're buzzing finger 3, then finger 2, then finger 4, then finger 1, and the first epoch of time. And then in the second epoch, we're buzzing finger 1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 3. A different set of fingers get buzzed in a third epoch, and then 2 quiet epochs, followed by just do it again, right? And as soon as students recognize, as soon as anybody sees that there's something called do it again, this is the perfect thing for a computer to take care of, right? You don't really have to be thinking about that stuff. Um, and so, so that is kind of the basic design, right? And for people that want to see on Amazon where those vibration motors come from, there are links to look exactly at those motors, to exactly at this kind of microcontroller, or to figure out what a transistor is.
So is the microcontroller an off-the-shelf item?
It is, yeah.
And
So
then you program it?
and you can program it. Yes, you can program it. And depending upon people's level of patience, we can program it this evening. The next page is the program that we used. So this one this one you can't really see for scale. This one is about the size of a credit card, okay?
Mhm.
Which would be a pretty big thing on your wrist. And so in the next page or so, we're going to replace this with a very similar microcontroller running the same software. This is the size of a postage stamp, right? And a postage stamp is something a lot nicer for sitting on your wrist. Okay. Um, yeah, so this is an off-the-shelf microcontroller that we can program, and we can program it on a laptop. Um, and the hardware is fully open source, and so is the software. So you don't have to pay anything for the software. And so in Tass's paper, each of these little red bursts lasts about 100 milliseconds, and each epoch was about 668 milliseconds. And and I'm a little bit too zoomed in, but this is the entire program. Um, and again, I'm not. This is not meant to be kind of a crash course in hardware and software. I just want to give people kind of access to some of the tools that are behind how the glove works. And so all that's really happening here is that we're going to be playing kind of three patterns. We're playing three patterns where in each pattern, there's an epoch of time. And during each epoch, we shuffle the finger pins, right? We don't always just buzz 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We kind of shift around which ones are going to get buzzed. So this is kind of a shuffle operation. And I do this with a play acting skit with my students, kind of get four people in a row, and I just basically shuffle them, right? And so this is the code for shuffling those finger pins around in software, not in hardware, right? I mean, you do not want to be scrambling your fingers. That would be quite a difficult thing to play with, right? Um, but then once we've shuffled your fingers in software, then we can apply these bursts. Okay. So Margaret, you're feeling this right now. So whatever pin that is, and it got renamed up there, we turn it on for BD milliseconds, 100. And then, of course, we turn it off for a little while, and then we turn on the next finger, and the next finger, and the next finger. All of them at about burst duration. And then there's some small period, where there's nothing happening. And then there are two quiet periods. TCR was the time of coordinated reset in Tass's language. And so we kind of have three patterns of buzzes and then two off, right? So this was the 3 on, 2 off kind of protocol that Tass is recommending. But once again, I mean, my belief is this is not one size fits all. That's another thing we could be playing with in an app that I want to talk about. And so this program is already written. And in fact, it's already written in a place where you could experiment with this, right? So if you click the Tinkercad link, you should be taken to a place. Have this up. Yeah. Should take you to. It'll take you to a place. Where, and with my students, we actually build this. So we first build all of our circuits in the cloud at this virtual place. So this is a breadboard with transistors, motors, resistors, and the Arduino. This is on a virtual, kind of workspace. And the code that I showed you is exactly right here. So now this is a virtual place where you can build the hardware and write the software. And you press start, And it may be difficult to see as the thing is moving, um, especially when I'm competing with Zoom. But we'll see little buzzes around, little kind of vibration waves around each of the motors as they get hit. Okay. So again, for people with a tech background, this is maybe fine. For people that aren't, it's just an advertisement that there are tools out there. So people may be incredulous that, right, this is being done by high school students, right? But with these kinds of tools, we can experiment and build and test, before moving into the more expensive space, right, of doing it on the tabletop. And so I'm gonna go back um, to our document. Sorry. And so that was some explanation of the basic hardware that you're working with, and 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 kind of full explication of the software. This is the code, right? And again, there's a development platform for moving that code into the postage stamp, right? But again, that platform is free, and I'd be happy to help people experiment with it. Um, And so this is a look at kind of a previous model of our design where I kind of spent some time to take better pictures, but the overall design hasn't changed appreciably. It's just gotten more robust. So this is the postage stamp size computer or microcontroller. These black things are transistors. These little wire loops are resistors. And then these screw terminals are the places where the finger wires come in, right? And in an old design, they came in with screw terminals. We now know how to get these from China where they kind of snap in, so it's a much more robust. We're having people's wires getting unscrewed, with vibration and use. And then at the end of these, so this is the computer sits in here on the box on your wrist. Um, the wires snap in and they snake through a fabric glove out to a fingertip, which has Velcro or elastic, depending upon the model that you're currently wearing. And in that is embedded that little black motor that we saw, right? That little black motor
Mhm.
is exactly what we're programming in Tinkercad. Um,
Oh, I see.
and so this has all that design, right? Of the computer, the transistors, the resistors, the terminals. There's one more blue terminal there to take the battery, right? Because all this stuff needs a rechargeable battery. This little postage stamp size computer also has a battery recharging circuit. Um, so again, the technology of this off-the-shelf, stuff is just incredible. Also, this computer costs $4, and these motors cost less than $1 a piece. Since this was a project, that came out of an impoverished, underserved um, Hispanic high school. We were going with kind of the cheapest possible things before we actually began testing, before we could begin charging folks for these things. Um, but already we had amazing success with these off-the-shelf cheap parts.
Awesome.
So, but this one was actually hand wired and hand soldered. And so we learned how to design these schematics and order printed circuit boards from China that would connect up all of the parts, right? And so we're now getting these printed circuit boards, where you can just kind of lay our computer down onto these sets of pins, and these two pogo sticks, which help get kind of help get power from the battery. These screw terminals have now been replaced by just jumper terminals. And then the students have designed in their computer-aided drafting part of the course with me. They designed these finger pads where the motor sinks in, its wires come out. These are the slots for the elastic strap that I see Ken looking at right now. Um, and and this is the glove box, right? Where actually all the electronics go, Velcro on the bottom, connecting up to the fabric. Um, and and that's it.
Finger pad is where the tactile sit.
Say again, Kanwar?
The finger pad is where the sensor is.
Yeah, the finger pad is where the motors are. Yeah, where the actuators are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so that's kind of a blow up, right? And then this is what they look like here on the fingers, right? Um, and so that's definitely something to speak about, right? Because these motors were custom designed, by a separate consulting company for Tass, the ones that you're wearing, Kanwar. Um, and so these are also motors that are vibrating more in the horizontal direction than in the vertical direction. And um, so we're kind of experimenting with turning these motors on their side so they give you kind of more just kind of impression onto the fingertip rather than shaking of the fingertip. Um,
I have
and,
them on
and
now.
you got
I'm
them on
wearing
now?
it. I've got them
Yeah.
on now. I don't know if you can see them, but
Stephen,
Steve,
Yes.
I I asked you this before, but I'm wondering if you have an answer to this now. Do you have any idea why he didn't do the thumb
Um,
in the design?
yeah, it's not clear to me why he didn't do the thumb. I mean, I think it's probably just that there's so many variations of this, so he found something that worked, right? And I and so um I'm not sure, it's there's yeah, I can only speculate, Linda. There's a couple of reasons. So for sure there's more work on on the mechanoreceptors that are in your fingertips on these finger pads than are in the thumb. So the the thumb seems to be largely there for manipulation and not for sensitivity. So that's a very bulk answer, right? But the thumb is there for us for gripping. The finger pads are there for us to really sense detailed things about our environment. And
Right.
so they're different beasts in some sense. But in his papers, I've seen no mention of the thumb, so he just completely ignores it. Um,
well, you completely immobilize the hand if you tie up the thumb.
thanks, Ken. Yeah, yeah. So also, if since we do use the thumb as the gripper, if you do throw if you're beginning to strap something onto the thumb, you lose functionality of the hand. Or I mean, you're already losing some functionality, of course, right? But with the thumb, it makes it even more difficult. Um,
Steve, question
yes.
about the motors. If you run
Yeah.
into a heat problem, the Rice team ran into a problem with the motors get real hot.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, so I have run into the heat problem if I drive them with too high a voltage. And so they're only rated up to about 3.3 volts. So if you start as soon as you begin, and the Arduino, this microcontroller, it has an output of 3.3 or 5. And I've been driving it at 3.3 without any heat problems.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, And there is kind of a reason to drive them higher because also the more voltage you give them, the closer these get to the frequencies of vibration that Tass is recommending. So we'll get to a picture in a minute or two about that, which again maybe TMI, but I think there's a reason the Rice group was driving them at a higher voltage. But I've had success, with driving them at 3.3.
Thank you.
Okay. Um, And so once again, just on the technology side, that's why I really want this to be a crowdsourced business, right? And again, I know I don't want to push an engineering course upon you. I just want to show you that the free tools are out there. I learned how to use this tool for designing a printed circuit board. I learned this from a high school junior in Espanola, right? So these are, and again, that doesn't mean you're a moron if you can't learn it yourself in an hour. I'm just telling you that these are readily available, like low-hanging tools. Um, and these boards cost about 50 cents a piece, until you add in the tariffs that we're currently dealing with. Yeah. Also, we have access to now really high quality 3D printers, so the kids are really, really making much, much cleaner designs, right, than what you see here. Um, And so just really briefly, I don't want to take anything. I really didn't want to even take half an hour here, Kanwar. Just really briefly kind of where things are going, right? And I know I got some pretty strong advice from Ken Toronto and others last time that basically saying, that Steve, stop thinking about improving the glove, just make it more robust so that it works for everybody, right? And I do have both sides of my brain moving in that direction, and I'm trying to get our kind of assembly students to become more careful about testing. And more careful just means testing for longer and longer. Rather than just saying, I think everything's working, let's just send it out. And then we find that someone's motor wires are broken, right? And it's a very hard thing to fix. And so if you will grant me just a little bit more of kind of the future of where things are going, it's actually, can we design apps that allow you, the Parkinson's patient, to tune those glove parameters to what you find to be the most efficacious, right? And the glove parameters here are motor amplitude. Some people are finding these things. I mean, so for example, so Ken H, I mean, a hot motor is, so it'd be nice if you could turn it down yourself rather than sending the glove back, right? And so I'm now with this app, it can give you the ability to turn down the motor amplitude. I can give you the ability to change the length of an epoch over which the four fingers are stimulated. And then even within an epoch, I can give you the ability to change the burst duration. Okay. And this happens between your cell phone, which has Bluetooth, and that postage stamp size computer that costs $4 also has Bluetooth. So this is a working app. Right now, one of our participants today, David Gold, who's with us, is using it, and he's been giving me detailed feedback on things that it's doing, it should be doing, and things that it could perhaps do better. But this is kind of proof of concept that your cell phone can speak to the glove. To get back to Ken Toronto's question from last time, these gloves do not have a central controller right now, right? There's a computer on each wrist, and so we're not really syncing those things up. But of course, the cell phone could do a beautiful job of syncing those up, right? You just have one cell phone talking to both of your gloves. And so that's one app which is written, but it's still in testing with a few folks in the Santa Fe area. And then the second app, which is kind of a precursor to the paper I want to discuss next week. The second app is something called a gait monitor, or something that can monitor your gait. So this is something that currently is not connected to the glove. So it's using the accelerometer that's sitting in your cell phone. And with that, it asks you to take a walk for 20 seconds, right? And then during that 20-second walk, it finds the rhythm of that walk, right? And that rhythm, that for people that do not have freezing of gait, your walk has a rhythm of about 2 or 3 so-called cycles per second, or 2 or 3 hertz, right? All of us have a characteristic rhythm. And so here, my rhythm was peaked at about 3 hertz, okay? And then as I walked around the room, that rhythm kind of changed. And so one possible way of scoring, which we'll look at more carefully next week, one way of scoring that is, what is the change in your rhythm over time? If you watched the video of the Today Show with Kanwar, you watched freezing of gait that he endured. And he went from a regular rhythm to a door threshold in which the rhythm went way, way up. You could actually see his body shaking at a higher frequency than a normal walk rhythm. So these are things that can be detected by a cell phone. Of course, these are things that your neurologist can detect, but again, and I'm not trying to put neurologists out of business, right? I'm just trying to put more of the care and the treatment back in your own pocket, in your own home. And these are all things, of course, I keep on saying this, which should be discussed in the context of talking to your neurologist, especially if you're thinking about changing your medication dosage. And so here is a really easy app to write. And again, just to play this up, these are apps that I've been writing with high school students using free software at MIT, right? So again, these are amazing tools that we're kind of having a palette of free tools that we're able to assemble and hopefully put to good use, right? I'm currently writing a similar app right now. So the Parkinson's gait has a characteristic, malfunction. The Parkinson's voice, as many of you may know, also has a characteristic malfunction. Something that can be detected by a cell phone without actually having to go into the clinic. These are still early days. The clinicians are still not yet adopting these measures, and so again, so I think the more we crowdsource and show that they may be working, the more data we collect, right, the better the chance we can make a more effective glove, right? And so the final stuff is a little bit too busy. So I'm just going to show you one or two things. They would be more for the engineers in the crowd. If you looked at the supplementary material of the motors that Tass is using, he wants that buzz to be happening at about 200 cycles per second, 2 to 250. That's the kind of the sweet spot, Ken and Linda, for the receptors that are on your fingertips, right? And so you want to show that those motors are vibrating at about 200 or 250 hertz. Okay. And so here I am connecting just one of our raw motors to a small sled that has an accelerometer, and we're measuring the vibration of that motor. It takes quite a while to get up to full amplitude. And the peak frequency here is around, I would say, 175. If I give a larger burst, the peak frequencies get closer up into the twos. If I give a longer burst, I can get up to peak frequencies even longer. These are longer bursts than what Tass was using. Tass was using noisy bursts, right? Kind of playing with their jitter. Instead of playing with the jitter of the burst, I'm just playing with using cheap motors, right? And seeing that I'm not, this is a lot of jitters already happening. These are not really synchronous vibrations into the fingertips. And again, that's maybe TMI for a lot of folks, but probably Kanwar is going to tell us. I mean, the computer in Tass's glove is pretty easy. The mechanical design is super important, but where the real rubber hits the road is where does the motor touch the finger, and is the motor doing the right stuff? And so these are pictures I've generated with my students to show that our motors are in the zone, right? They're in the zone. They're not heavily engineered like the Tass motors, but they're producing the frequencies that Tass is recommending, but in a maybe broader spectrum, which again, I'm an optimist. That broader spectrum maybe it's a little noisier, so maybe the fingers are happier getting this than the precise rhythms they were getting from the Tass motors.
Is there a way you measure just the total power output? In other words, it's just like one's really hitting your fingers harder than the other.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's a good question, Ken, and I have not been able to do that carefully. I can measure how much current these motors are drawing, so I know what battery to choose, for example. But as far as motors, or sorry, as far as power, and also even more importantly, Tass is saying, that the previous study were making the dents they were making in the fingers were much larger than the dents they're not really dense, sorry, they're kind of pushing into the finger. He wants them to push in, like a tenth of a millimeter. And so those for me are those precision measurements I don't really know how to do right yet. And so that's something I'd like to study.
Yeah, I just didn't know whether like a more robust feeling in your fingertip is better or worse.
Gotcha. Yeah. I don't know that either, right? And so that it comes down to like having the right motor, and then also having the right connection to make sure, right, that it's kind of that you're wearing this for 4 hours. I hope that each of those minutes is effective, right? And if the motor is slipping off or not doing the right thing, it's not right. And so, but that's another thing that's not been explored. So I really want to turn this over to Kanwar to give us kind of a review of how the glove has worked for him, and kind of and give us his insights into what things feel like. And so I know a number of you are wearing the Espanola glove, but a number of you are waiting for those. So I think there's no better person to hear about this than Kanwar. And I hope that a lot of you that might be new to us had a chance to watch the video of kind of Kanwar's amazing early improvement, with the Tass glove. So, Kanwar, I'm going to stop the share and hand the group over to you. So I'm super grateful for you to help us reinforce and help us learn more about how to better serve folks.
Not at all. It's a pleasure, Steve. And thank you for, really taking the lead on this project with your students. and really championing this because we need more of this out there so that people can be helped with Parkinson's. Um, I just share with you, I'm not an engineer by trade, so a lot of what Stephen's discussing is over my head. But Peter showed me this, Peter Tass showed me this similar slides with different frequencies and amplitudes and all that. And I was at the verge of giving up. Basically, I was diagnosed at age 39. Like many of you, probably walked into a doctor's office and they didn't do a blood test, probably just had you walk a few steps and said you've got Parkinson's.
Mhm.
And that was my story. And I was beside myself. I used a few curse words and walked out of the doctor's office and said, let me go see another doctor. Went to see another doctor, same scenario. Then I said, let me go to Mayo Clinic, and get a reference from there. And it was the same story over and over again. So I was in denial for the first 10 years and basically had given up. And it was a victim mentality where poor me, and rather than taking the cause and championing it forward and trying to find some solution. I was doing a lot of research all over the world because my job allowed me to travel all over the world. So I was fortunate enough to be able to see stuff going on in Japan and Korea and other parts of the world. But at the end of the day, everything comes back to the U.S. and we've done a lot more innovation here than anywhere else in the world. Medicines created a lot of side effects, and they started wearing off over time. So that wasn't effective. They created addictions, certain medicines, and so I was a total mess basically, and had given up on life. And then about in 2018, I was in New York, and I was getting into an elevator and struggling to walk into the elevator, and I had shuffling of gait, and it was really bad shape. And as soon as I got in the elevator, people thought, first people think that you're drunk. And so it was early in the morning. I said, I'm not drunk, guys. I've got Parkinson's. And a woman walked out of the elevator on our floor and said, if you've got Parkinson's, there's a cutting edge doctor in California at Stanford who's doing some interesting stuff. It was a Sunday morning, and just call him. So I called him. I didn't think anything of it. And I said, let me just give it a shot. Called him, and got on the phone with Peter Tass, and he called me that afternoon, the same afternoon. And the following Thursday, I was on a plane. Following Thursday, I was on a plane to California to meet with him. And he took me through a presentation on how he had done vibrotactile simulation reset on monkeys. And I said, this can't be that bad because it's not invasive. So I didn't want to go for deep brain surgery. I didn't want to do anything else. And the medicines were wearing off. So I went in, and the first thing they usually do is they do a UPDRS score. And my score was upward of 60, which is pretty high. It is pretty good. Someone's trying to reach me. I'll just hang up on the phone. So my score was pretty high, and my movements were very slow, and I couldn't. My speech was garbled. I basically literally went into his office in a wheelchair and walked out the same day without the wheelchair. So he put the device on me, and it was just basically a set of gloves with a central control system. And just like Stephen has been sharing, the frequency of the signals and the randomization of it, it was just like that. And the thing that Peter did was he had 3 settings, because with Parkinson's, as many of you know, you lose sensitivity. So your sense of touch and feel is not as strong as a normal person. So the intensity of the motor, in terms of the pressure that it applies to your finger, has to be stronger if you're deep into the disease, or softer if you're early onset into the disease. So he started with a low setting, didn't really do anything. Then he went to a medium setting, which was more intensity, and they put a dent in my fingers. But I said, Peter, what is this doing? And he said, basically, it's firing neurons into your brain. And I said, why don't you use the toes? And he said, well, it's too far from the brain. So this is the closest, fingers are the closest to your brain. And I can send signals to the brain from the fingertips. And he said, he basically, in layman's terms, what he described it as was, he said, your brain is in a loop. It's stuck in a loop, so it can't be unlooped. And with these signals I'm sending through, it's going to unloop it, hopefully, and start producing some dopamine, because we've got dopamine deficiency. and you know, the neurons will be firing in the right direction. So we tried it. We tried different settings, and I sat down for 2 hours in his chamber, and just I felt it was just relaxing, basically with the gloves on, very therapeutic. And I didn't really think anything would happen, but then right after that, I got up, and I didn't have my meds with me, and I was walking around perfectly. And as the day progressed, I had an afternoon session for 2 hours, and it got even better. So in the video you saw my before and after. The before was the night before, and the after was the day of the treatment, the first day of the treatment. Is when we do 4 hours of stimulation, basically. And so then we did a UPDR score measurement, and it came down from upward of 60, came down to the 40s, and by the 3 week time period, it was down to 12.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
And I was living a normal life, and I was still working. And in fact, then I said to myself, I said, "But I didn't even have a clue what Parkinson's was when I got diagnosed, like many of you probably, you know, because my feeling was that I got diagnosed at 39 and been living with it for 21 years. I said, you know, it's probably for people over 70 and over, you know, that who get this disease. I didn't have a clue. Then I learned about Michael J. Fox. He had it at age 29, and I had the opportunity to meet him and, you know, do some fundraising for his organization as well. And you know, he's still hanging in there. And then I said, let me start to get involved in some support groups. So that was the best thing I did, was getting involved in support groups like this, and in effect, learning from others in terms of what their experience has been. Because the glove is not silver bullet, I have to say. It's one of the tools you can use to improve your quality of life, but it's not going to be the cure for Parkinson's. You know, the remedy I like to prescribe to people is, you know, there's really 4 components: your diet, your medicine regimen, your exercise, and then the gloves. That's basically what you need. You have a good balance of that, and then you can really enjoy the quality of life that we all deserve to have. So I started using the gloves every day religiously for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. I used to send a log to Peter every week in terms of was I using the gloves sitting down, sleeping, lying down? What was my posture? Because it made a difference, believe it or not. If I was lying down, it wasn't as effective. For some reason, still haven't figured it out why. But when I was sitting down was the best comfortable position. I could be working on my computer, and I could still be using the gloves, and it didn't create a problem. But then what happened after 6 months or so, I started getting dyskinesia, and I was getting dyskinesia, and the thing what was happening was I was overdosed. My medicine regimen hadn't changed, and I was still using the same. I was on 25 carbidopa levodopas a day, you know, 25 100 milligrams Cinemet, and I was using the gloves, so I was getting overstimulated. So then Peter said, "Well, why don't you start using the glove 2 hours a day?" And so about 6 7 month mark, I started using it 2 hours a day, and it was still overdosing me. And so then they decreased my medicine regimen. So we went from 25 carbidopas, levodopas, we went to about 15. And we gradually dropped it. And then they titrated it to make sure that it was still effective. And it started getting better. But I was still overdosed because I was getting overstimulated even with 2 hours. So then he said, well, let's now decrease your medicine more, and decreased it more. And I now only take basically 6 pills a day, two in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 at night. And I use the gloves, basically I use them maybe once or twice a week, because it's like a reserve tank. It builds in your system, so you've got enough dopamine in there to carry you forward. And I'm doing well. In 2018, the first year of my treatment with the gloves, I was able to run the New York City Marathon, where I couldn't dream of running that before, because I just didn't have the energy, didn't have the power in my legs to do it. And then 2 years ago, I did the triathlon here in Orlando, Florida. So, you know, they do work. I'm a strong believer of them. And you've got to use, the problem is a lot of people, you know, want the gloves, but they don't use it. They're just sitting on a shelf because it's too laborious to use for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. But, you know, if you want improvement in life, you have to use them religiously. Now, did every participant in the program that I was in get benefits? I was the second patient who went through the treatment. And by the way, my UPDR score went down to under 10, and it's still about 8 or 9 right now. And, you know, do I still get shakes and tremors? Do I still get freezing of gait? Yes, I do, but it's very seldom. And the thing I might add is just last week, I was living with this, but at the same time, what we discovered was I had a tumor as well in my system. And so I had a double whammy. So Parkinson's plus a field tumor in my adrenal gland was causing complications. So it was really creating a bad quality of life for me. And once I got that removed, you know, my life has improved even more since then because the tumor has many of the same symptoms as Parkinson's does. And now I'm on the lowest setting of the glove, and the intensity isn't as strong because I've got my sense of touch and feel back. I lost my sense of taste and smell, and I got it back. I wouldn't say 100%, about 60%. I got it back. I can taste things. Before, I used to have a glass of red wine with some friends, and they say, "How do you like the wine?" I said, "It's really good," but honestly speaking, I couldn't taste it. No, I just knew it was wine. But I got my sense of taste back with over time. That takes time. You're not going to get it back overnight or in a couple of weeks, but it's 6 months use and all that kind of stuff. And I've been using the gloves for 8 years. They broke down. I got them fixed at You Break It, I Fix It. They were able to fix it. One of the wires was off, and then they broke down again. And then Ken was nice enough to get it fixed for me again. And Ken, I haven't given you the latest. The battery just died on it now. So, but the gloves I've been able to use for 8 years, nonstop, without changing any parts, and it's worked for me. And my UPDR score has gone down. My depression, which is common with Parkinson's, has improved, and my mood is improved. My gait has improved, and you know, alongside that, I walk. You don't have to do intense exercise, but you've got to do exercise every day, and you know, whatever your body can handle. And I walk 3 miles in the morning every day, and just make it a point to get my heart rate up, and just keep chugging along. Even if you don't feel like walking, you've got to do that because the glove's not going to solve all your issues. It's just a combination of those things. So that's kind of an overview. Is there any questions?
Please, friends, I'm sure that that's such a powerful story. I mean, and the fact that, I mean, 8 years and the score is still down, and the other side effects are also improved. So thanks, Kanwar. This is so powerful.
Thank you. So I've decreased my medicine, used the gloves. I've deferred other treatments for 8 years because of the gloves. I would have had to have DBS surgery prior to that, and this is not in lieu of DBS. You eventually will need DBS if you're a candidate for it, but this is a stopgap, which helps you, you know, curtail the time you have to get DBS by. So I'm going for DBS in a few months to get DBS done, but I can always turn it off and use the gloves, you know, see the benefit. But I don't want to wait too long because as I get older, I won't be a candidate for DBS.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So are you saying that you're only using the glove now an hour a day?
No, I use them for 2 hours a day, but I don't use them every day.
Okay.
If I use them every day, I get overdosed. I'm moving around like this, you know. So you burn a good sweat, but it's not comfortable. So I use them as and when needed now, and I use them like I've used them twice in the last week, and it's worked for me. And each patient is different. So just to kind of give you an overview, I was the second patient. The first patient had some results, but they weren't sustainable. They weren't long-term. The third patient, not Jimmy Choi, but Jimmy Choi, you may have heard of from American Ninja Warriors.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was in one of the trials as well, and I know him quite well. And so he got some improvement in it. but he recently got DBS.
Okay.
But each patient, as you know, Parkinson's patients are different. They get different benefits from it. But in the clip you saw on the Today Show, the other patients there, they got some benefit. But I was probably the one who got the most benefit out of it, and I was early onset, so that made a difference, supposedly.
Mhm.
Well,
The-
thank you so much
the-
for sharing this.
You're welcome.
Amazing results.
Yeah, my speech was garbled up, and it was like,
It's much
I was wondering why
shorter
people
than-
didn't want to, weren't listening to me, and I said, what the heck's going on? I mean, I'm talking, and they're not listening. And I supplemented that with the gloves. I supplemented that with speech therapy, and now my voice projects well. You know, do I have moments? Yes, I do. But for the most part, I'm able to carry conversation without me losing my speech. My biggest thing was the sense of taste and smell, and the freezing of gait. I was able to improve upon that.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
I,
thank
I
you.
was I was using the earlier gloves, and I found that I was tired every time I'd use them. And then Steve added in the feature where I can adjust the intensity, and now I can use them, and I feel okay.
Mhm.
And I'm getting some results. I'm just wondering, do you think that I went in the right direction, or should I have tried to have greater intensity? I have good sensitivity in my fingers, so I'm just wondering. I'm not running any marathons tomorrow, put it that way. But I am. I feel better emotionally, and I'm finding certain tasks easier.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if it's like as I go along, whether it'll keep on improving or whether I should do something
Yeah.
different. Try
So like I
different
mentioned to you, you know, I was using it every day for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. And then the first year, it was pretty much that. And I was getting overdosed. Then I started using it once a day for 2 hours in the morning. And that was still overdosing. And then I went to every other day, and now it's as needed. So it improves. I mean, I've got it now. I'm been living with it for now almost 22 years, and people who see me, you know, knock on wood, it's hope we're all there. Is that you know I'm in fairly good shape. I still drive. I still try to go out as much as possible, but it's just how you manage it. Remember, I said it's not just the glove. It's the exercise, the diet, and the pill regimen. Because medicines are the worst thing that can cause the side effects. And I've been you name it, I've been through all the medicines. You know, I was adventurous in the beginning. I'd try everything out there, and I'd tell the doctors to prescribe it. As soon as it got approved by the FDA, I'd have the doctors prescribe it to me and said, "Let me try that. Let me try that. Let me try that." And some worked, some didn't work. Some didn't work in the beginning, but then a second time when I tried it a few years down the road, they worked. So, and the best thing I could say is, you know, if you don't have a movement disorder specialist, I would highly recommend that you get one. And in addition to neurologists, because neurologists will tell you so much, but you'll need a movement disorder specialist as well to really guide you through it, because there's so many nuances with Parkinson's and variations and Parkinson'sism as well, that each patient is very different. You know, the prescription I've got of stuff I'm doing might not work for you. It might work somewhat for you. It might vary, or it might really work extremely well for you. It all varies by patient.
Did you find that what kind of a diet do you follow, and did you find that made a difference if you
Yeah.
tweaked your diet?
So I tried, you know, they say proteins is a no-no with the medicines because they interfere with the medicines. but you have to, your body needs protein. So what I do is I have my proteins at night, usually because before I'm going to sleep. So I eat my steak or chicken and all that kind of stuff at night. I eat a lot of lentils because they've got good proteins. A lot of beans, a lot of salads. It's sort of like a Mediterranean diet. And avoid dairy. And I never take medicines with food. I always wait an hour and a half before or after I take my medicine because there's no effect. It doesn't metabolize as well with the body. And processed foods are no-no. So as much as I like hams and all that, I avoid that. I cheat sometimes, I'll be honest. I cheat sometimes. I have cheese and all that kind of stuff. But sugar is your worst enemy. Even though we all want to have sugar, but you don't want to do that. And that's basically it from a diet perspective. And some of the tricks I've learned along the way is with medicine is Cinemet. When we have all experienced days where the medicine doesn't kick in, and it's like you're taking the medicine and saying, why isn't it kicking in? It normally kicks in an hour or 30 minutes, and it's not kicking in, and something's wrong. And so what I used to do in the early days is take Cinemet, crush it up into powder, and put it in a carbonated beverage, like a soda or Coke or something like that, and drink it. It absorbs into your skin and system immediately. So you get the benefit of it immediately.
It's a good point.
Mm.
Does
You
it
also-
last as long if you do that, or does it kick it, like go into an off period faster?
No, it lasts just as long.
Yeah.
As long. But it's more immediate. So you'll get the same time period, but it gets into your system as much faster. That's why they have got the pumps now, where you can get the Violet pumps and put it on your stomach, so it gets into your system. It bypasses the other system and gets into your system immediately.
You also experienced the failures of gloves when you couldn't use the gloves because they were broken. And
Yeah. So when
Oh,
my gloves were
that's
broken, I was after a while, after about 3 weeks, I started getting down again because I wasn't getting any stimulation. So I was getting exercise. I was still getting the diet, still getting the medicine. So I had to increase my medicine regimen. And you don't want to do that because they in themselves create a lot of side effects. So once I got the gloves fixed, then I was back on track again, and I started using them again.
You said that you felt relaxed when the gloves were working. Could you elaborate a little bit on?
Yeah, so
Um,
it was like I was sitting down and I'd put them on and I'd fall asleep. I mean, it was that relaxing because for those of you who might have had acupuncture, basically it feels like a pinprick on your finger, and the intensity is based on the chip he puts in with low, medium, or high sensitivity, and it felt good on the fingers, and I was just really relaxed, no stress, nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah, to follow up on David's observation earlier. So you said when you got overstimulated, you felt dyskinesia. Did you ever feel tired in addition to that? That's what
Yes.
David was feeling?
Yes, tired. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yes. And that I don't know if it was as a result of the tumor or Parkinson's, but
Yeah.
as of last week when I got the tumor removed, I feel even less tired now.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Wow.
Kanwar, did the other participants utilize the gloves as well as you did, or did they?
To be honest with you, probably not.
Well, they
I
didn't
mean,
get to
from
keep them.
what I heard,
They didn't get to keep them.
they didn't get to keep them. I got to keep mine.
Oh, wow.
So I got to keep mine. And my wife was pretty adamant. We went out there to California. She said, when Peter saw the results, he said, "Wow, this is incredible." And my wife she's a go-getter. She basically said, "Listen, if you want some benefit of this, he needs to keep the gloves." And he says, "Well, I can't do that." And he says, "Well, we can't participate in the trial because we need to keep the gloves because if you really want to see the benefit." And he said, "Okay, we'll do it." I said, I'll give you a credit card if you want. You can keep the money, but if I don't return them, but let me try it." And
Mhm.
he was nice enough to let me try it, and I still have the gloves.
Mhm.
Cool.
Excellent.
And I think people are also, I mean, curious kind of about the current state of Tass's clinical trials or
Yeah,
you know,
so
a Glove 2.0 or something. What's
yeah,
your correspondence
so I've
been
been
like?
working on 2.0 with Peter for the last 2-3 years with the vendors, with the manufacturer as well, who was going to do the prototype. They unfortunately, what had happened was the first time round, they ran out of money.
Mhm.
And so that's why the trials didn't proceed further. Then the second time around is they were partnering with a vendor called Synergix out of Oregon.
Mhm.
And they had a misunderstanding with Stanford. And so they had a fallout. And Synergix decided to go their own way. And they start marketing Tass's gloves as if they were Tass's gloves with the algorithm,
Mhm.
and try to get FDA approval. I'm not sure where they are there, but I've talked to people who tried those gloves. They get a placebo effect. They say, "Wow, this works. It's really good." And they call me up and tell me it's working. Why don't you try it, Kanwar? I said, "No, I don't want to try it." And they try it for about 2-3 weeks, and they're all elated and thrilled that it's working. 2 months later, they come back to me and said, "It's not working anymore."
Hmm.
So, you know, it's the hype of, well, the excitement of trying it for the first time.
Yeah.
It's working for them, and
Right.
it's just a feel good attitude.
But
And
didn't
then
they
they
make
ran out of money a second time again, and then they went to a vendor in San Francisco, who I spoke to, and we were talking about the design, because the gloves that I was wearing are klutzy. You know, they got wires all over the place. You've got to have a neck piece, and it's a motor one device, and then the wires are all over the place. So I said to Peter, I said, what you need to do is you need to have Bluetooth oriented, so you don't have wires lying around, and just control everything remotely. And you can
Mhm.
also adjust the amplitude and the intensity and all that. And so we were working on that with the vendor, and then they didn't get anywhere. They didn't have good designs from them. So then he went to another vendor, and I spoke to them as well. And you know, Stanford being a big organization, it's a bureaucracy as well, to be honest with you.
I see.
So he had a lot of funding issues, and with these trials, he has to find money himself. Stanford doesn't give money.
Mhm.
So he had to get the funding himself from investors. So, you know, Sergio Grimm from Google, his mother has Parkinson's.
Right,
And
right.
so I said to him, I said, I'll be happy to go with you and kind of market it for you and go to him. Let's ask for money. But we couldn't because he had already donated to another section of Stanford for something else.
Gotcha. Wow. Wow.
Mm.
That's really frustrating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. Does dyskinesia manifest as a gait problem sometimes, where you feel like you're being pushed around?
Yes, yes, yes. I have that. If I've got too much medicine in my system, I
You
get
feel
that
like
where I just get
imbalance.
automatically get pushed and I'm banging
Yeah.
against walls.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because I do get that a lot with exhaustion. And
yeah.
I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with my medication or the combination of the gloves and the medication.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
that's the key where you've got to really titrate the medicine to the gloves. It took us about a year to get to that point, the sweet spot, to really titrate it because the person who did it was a neurosurgeon who titrated it. And his comeback to me was, he says, why would I want to market these gloves? Because, you know, these are $1,000 pair of gloves where I could do DBS surgery for $80,000.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you're not thinking right. You know,
Yeah.
Oh.
he's no longer
Yeah,
there at Stanford, by
bad.
the way.
Mhm.
I just wanted to add something because about Stanford, they have resumed the study because I was called as a potential candidate. So they are resuming right now.
I spoke to
And
Peter in February, and he's been telling me for 3 years they're going to resume it.
it
And
is right now. I got called by the recruiter about a week ago.
a week ago. That's good.
That's
I
But
haven't spoken to
interesting.
Peter since February.
yeah, no, they just started talking to candidates again. So it is happening. So you might want to contact him now.
I will, because I'll tell him I've got his cell number, so I'll call him on his cell and tell him to get me a pair of gloves.
Yes, you should. You deserve it. You're the
But I have to
star
say,
here.
the Espanola gloves, they work. I've tried them, And I've got a pair of gloves from Ken as well. Ken shared a pair of gloves with me. And the difference between the Ken's gloves and the Espanola gloves is the level of intensity.
Okay,
So maybe the sensitivity of my fingers, but the Espanola gloves, I got some benefit from it.
Yeah.
good. That's great to know. Thank you.
Depression and exhaustion seem to be a big part of my dilemma.
Yeah,
What drives me to keep trying.
yeah. And lack of sleep, because we don't sleep properly. And
I sleep very soundly.
yeah. So I came across a doctor who was very well known around the world, Dr. Oken. It's not a
Oh, yeah.
commercial for a doctor. It's not a commercial for a doctor, but he's very well regarded in the industry and very well known. And so I went to him because he's in my backyard in Florida, and he's prescribed a medicine to me, which was for sleeping, and it's actually used for schizophrenia patients, but it's repurposed for Parkinson's. And I tell you, I get the best sleep with that.
What is it?
Seroquel.
There, Seroquel, really?
Ask your doctor about it. But
I don't have any trouble with sleep. My husband does. I think he's such a good caregiver that he probably can't sleep after he's been with me all
it's tough on the caregivers as well. You know.
day. Seroquel. Okay, I'll tell him. He's reluctant to take anything. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, anytime you have any questions, feel free to, I'm sure Stephen will send my email out, but you can email me. I'd be happy to help anyone out because I got help from someone else when I found that lady in the elevator who told me
Yeah.
about the doctor.
Yeah.
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 Thank you very much for talking to us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'm surrounded by researchers where I live. I live in my daughter even works at MBL, which is Marine Biological Lab, and people are always studying the research. I have such high respect for researchers.
Yeah, it's a tough job.
Yeah, they're just
Yeah, and
dedicated.
and funding is getting tighter. I mean, we have Espanola has the benefit of a small bureaucracy, but we also don't have, the fundraisers and the like, and the Sergey Brins and the
Yeah.
and the like. And so I know it's after 10 in Florida, so I don't want to keep kind of running longer. I'm super, super grateful, and I hope we just can continue this conversation.
Absolutely.
For as we go forward, I really want all of us to be able to learn more about how to quantify freezing of gait and how to quantify muscle activity so we can use those measurements to better tune the glove. So Connor's already talked about kind of different stimulus patterns. So I think that for me, that's the next place to go, is to learn how to quantify these things. This is research that's also happening, at the clinic. They can measure these things, but this kind of off-the-shelf electronics I showed you guys and off-the-shelf programming, those same computers that allow you to control the glove can be used to sense what's happening in various muscles. And I'm very interested in kind of designing experiments together for experiments that can be effectively done at home, rather than me just kind of, guessing. By effectively, I mean done by Parkinson's patients and their caregivers. Can we learn more about where your current disease state is by reading literature and by building devices? We have a phone that can talk to the glove. The phone could also talk to a sensor on your deltoid during a simple task.
I think you're onto something there, and I think if you could, I like the idea of customizing it through an app.
Yeah.
Because even what he's telling us is that he had to customize, and he did it through experimentation.
Yeah.
So if you were using a smart device, you would be way ahead to being able to customize that to each person. So
Yeah.
I think you're definitely onto something there.
I mean, I hope also, Conwar was the exception in the study. Everyone responded and improved their score by 3, right? But there was this gigantic variability. And so the more we learned about, the current state of the body, the more we can customize that treatment. So so that's where I'd like to take us. So I will post a recording of this session. If you please share that with other folks in your support community. And I'm super grateful to Kanwar even offering now to continue to respond to other questions that may come up, after this evening. So
Pleasure.
Thank
thank
you.
you, sir.
Yes, thank you so much.
So anytime.
You're an inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You
Good
are.
job.
Thank you, Kanwar.
Thank you very much.
Hope to see you next time, friends. I'm going to
Absolutely.
turn off the recording.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Much appreciated.